The arrival. Sergeant Ryan Carter woke up with a sharp pain in his side. His vision was blurry, and his body felt heavy. The last thing he remembered was his drop pod shaking violently as it entered the atmosphere. Now he was lying on cold, damp ground. His breathing was slow, steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. Ryan forced himself to sit up. His combat suit was torn, the emergency beacon on his wrist flashing red. The air around him was thick, filled with the scent of damp earth and something sweet, like wildflowers mixed with an unfamiliar spice. He looked around. Massive trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. Strange vines wrapped around the trunks, some pulsing softly as if they were alive. The jungle was unlike anything he had seen before. It wasn't just alien, it was surreal. Ryan checked his gear. No weapons, no comms, just his broken helmet and the survival knife strapped to his leg. He sighed. Great, just great. He needed to find shelter before nightfall. As he stood up, he felt something watching him. The hairs on his neck stood up. He scanned the jungle, but there was nothing, just the thick mist rolling between the trees. He took a deep breath and started moving. The jungle was alive. Soft chirps and distant howls echoed through the trees. Ryan stepped carefully, avoiding the strange glowing plants that seemed to react to his presence. He had been trained for survival, but this place was unpredictable. Then he heard it. A whisper. Ryan froze. He turned his head slightly, trying to locate the sound. It was faint, almost like a breath in the wind. But then he heard it again. A hushed voice, speaking in a language he didn't understand. He wasn't alone. Slowly, Ryan reached for his knife. His heartbeat quickened. He moved behind a tree, pressing his back against the rough bark. More whispers, more movement. Leaves rustled above him. Suddenly, something leaped from the trees. Ryan barely had time to react. He ducked as a shadowy figure landed where he had just been standing. Another shape darted from the bushes. Fast, silent, deadly. Ryan spun, raising his fists, ready to fight. But then he saw them. They weren't monsters. They were women. Tall, slender, and unlike any human woman he had ever seen. Their violet skin shimmered under the faint light, and their eyes glowed softly, a mix of gold and silver. Their hair flowed like silk, some braided, others loose, swaying with the jungle breeze. They wore minimal clothing, decorated with feathers, beads, and strange metallic ornaments. Ryan's grip on his knife tightened. "I don't want trouble," he said slowly. "I just need to." Before he could finish, one of them moved lightning fast. Her hand grabbed his wrist, twisting it with surprising strength. Ryan grunted, barely managing to keep hold of his knife. Another woman circled behind him, her fingers tracing his armor as if studying its texture. They were curious. Ryan tried to step back, but the women were faster. They closed the distance, surrounding him completely. Soft hands touched his shoulders, his chest, his arms. One of them murmured something, pointing at his face. Ryan's breath hitched. They had never seen a man before. One of the women, taller than the rest, with piercing silver eyes, stepped forward. She was different. Her presence was commanding. A leader. She touched Ryan's cheek lightly, tilting her head. Then, before he could react, she reached out and pulled at his torn uniform. The fabric ripped easily, exposing part of his chest. The women gasped in unison, their glowing eyes wide with fascination. One of them traced a finger along his scars, murmuring softly. Ryan tensed. "Whoa! Hey! Stop that!" But they didn't stop. They spoke to each other in hushed voices, their hands still exploring his armor, his skin. Ryan felt a mix of confusion and panic. He was a soldier, not some kind of alien science experiment. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they went silent. Ryan followed their gaze. The jungle had changed. The soft chirps had stopped. The air grew heavy. A deep, guttural growl echoed in the distance. The leader, the one with silver eyes, stepped back. Her expression was no longer curious. It was serious. She barked a command in their language. The other women grabbed their weapons, strange, curved blades that shimmered like liquid metal. Ryan clenched his fists. Something was coming. And whatever it was, even these alien women feared it. Captured by the tribe. Ryan barely had time to process what was happening. The alien women, who had just been touching him with curiosity, were now on high alert. Their glowing eyes scanned the dense jungle, their hands gripping their weapons tightly. The silver-eyed leader whispered something in their language, and the group moved as one, forming a protective circle around Ryan. A deep growl rumbled again, this time closer. Ryan didn't have a weapon, just his survival knife. His instincts screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The jungle was too thick, and the women were still blocking his path. Whatever they were preparing to fight, it was something they feared. Then, the jungle exploded into motion. A massive shadow burst through the trees, its long claws cutting through thick vines like paper. A creature, towering at least 10 feet tall, covered in armored scales, landed with a heavy thud. Its eyes burned with an eerie blue glow, and its mouth split into multiple layers of razor-sharp teeth. Ryan's breath caught. This thing wasn't just a predator. It was a monster. The alien women didn't flinch. In perfect synchronization, they launched themselves at the beast. Their movements were graceful, deadly. Blades flashed, cutting deep into the creature's hide, but the thing barely reacted. It swung its massive claws, knocking 2 of the women back. One of them hit a tree, groaning in pain. Ryan acted without thinking. He dived for the fallen warrior, grabbing her before the beast could finish her off. His sudden movement caught the others by surprise, but there was no time to explain. The silver-eyed leader screamed something, and the others regrouped. Ryan rolled the injured woman away from the battlefield and grabbed a fallen spear. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The battle was brutal. The creature was strong, too strong. Every time the women cut it, it healed almost instantly. One of them tried to stab it in the eye, but the thing snapped its jaws, crushing her weapon. Ryan gritted his teeth. If they didn't do something fast, they were all dead. Then he saw it, a weak spot. The creature had a patch of exposed flesh just beneath its armored plates, right near its ribcage. It was small, but it was something. Ryan didn't hesitate. He ran straight toward the beast. "Hey, ugly," he shouted. "Over here." The thing turned, its glowing eyes locking onto him. Ryan threw the spear with everything he had. The weapon flew straight and true, piercing deep into the weak spot. The creature let out a horrifying screech, staggering backward. Its thick legs trembled as it collapsed, twitching violently. The jungle went still. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, the silver-eyed leader stepped forward. She stared at Ryan, her expression unreadable. The other women followed, their glowing eyes filled with something new, not just curiosity. Respect. Ryan, breathing heavily, wiped the sweat from his brow. "You're welcome," he muttered. But before he could celebrate, something cold and metallic pressed against his neck. One of the women had a blade to his throat. Ryan stiffened. What the hell? The silver-eyed leader spoke sharply, and the others surrounded him once more. This time, they weren't fascinated. They were suspicious. Ryan raised his hands. Whoa, I just saved your lives." The leader studied him for a long moment. Then she motioned to the others. Before Ryan could react, they grabbed him. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" He struggled, but they were surprisingly strong. They bound his wrists with energy ropes, tight enough that he couldn't escape. His knife was taken, along with the torn remains of his combat armor. Then, without a word, they dragged him away, the captive of the jungle. Ryan was marched through the jungle for what felt like hours. His wrists burned from the energy ropes, but he didn't fight. He needed to understand what was happening first. The alien women moved swiftly through the thick foliage, their silent steps making it clear they were used to this terrain. They barely seemed tired, while Ryan was already sweating bullets. Eventually, the jungle opened up into a massive clearing. Ryan's breath caught. A city, carved directly into the cliffs. Towering structures made of smooth, silver-like stone, covered in glowing blue veins of energy. Bridges stretched across deep rivers, and the air hummed with an ancient power. This wasn't some primitive tribe. This was a lost civilization. Ryan was hauled through the gates, where more alien women gathered. Hundreds of them. Their eyes widened as they saw him. Whispers spread like wildfire. He realized something odd. There were no men. Not a single one. The crowd parted as the silver-eyed leader approached a massive throne, carved from the same strange metal as the city walls. Sitting on it was an older woman, her violet skin marked with glowing tribal patterns. Her golden eyes were sharp, analyzing Ryan with an intensity that made him shiver. The silver-eyed warrior spoke in their language, gesturing to Ryan. The elder's gaze never left him. Then she spoke in flawless, but strangely accented English. "You are human." Ryan blinked in shock. "You speak my language." The elder ignored his question. "You are the first male to walk this city in over 600 years. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. 600 years. No wonder they had looked at him like an alien specimen. The elder leaned forward. "Tell me, human, why should we let you live?" Ryan's jaw clenched. He had risked his life to help them, and now they were questioning if he should live. He took a slow breath and stared directly into her eyes. "Because you need me," he said, "and if you kill me, you'll regret it." The crowd gasped. The elder narrowed her eyes. Then she laughed. A deep, amused laugh. "You are bold, human." She turned to the silver-eyed warrior. "Velshera, take him to the holding chamber. We will decide what to do with him later." Velshera nodded. Ryan was dragged away once more. But one thing was certain. His arrival had changed everything. And soon, he would learn why he was the only male they had seen in centuries. The chaos begins. Ryan Carter was dragged through the glowing corridors of the alien city, his wrists still bound by the strange energy ropes. His muscles ached, his torn combat suit barely clinging to his body. He had survived an unknown jungle, a monstrous beast, and a group of alien warrior women, only to be treated like a prisoner. But Ryan had seen something in their eyes, not just suspicion, but uncertainty. They didn't know what to do with him. The leader, Velshera, walked ahead, her silver eyes focused straight ahead, ignoring him. The other warriors flanked him, their grip on his arms firm, but not cruel. As they passed through the corridors, Ryan could feel the stares of dozens, no, hundreds, of alien women watching him. Some whispered among themselves, some giggled, others simply stared, their glowing eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. He had a bad feeling about this. Finally, they stopped before a massive chamber carved into the rock. The entrance was guarded by two towering women clad in ornate silver armor, their weapons crackling with purple energy. Velshera turned to Ryan. "You will stay here," she said, her voice smooth but commanding, "until the matriarch decides your fate." Ryan gritted his teeth. "I saved your people's lives. If this is how you treat your heroes, you've got serious issues." Velshera's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered. "You are not one of us," she said simply, "and you are not a hero yet." She motioned to the guards, and they pushed Ryan inside the chamber. The doors slammed shut behind him. The holding chamber. The room was surprisingly comfortable. Ryan expected a dark, damp cell, but instead, the walls pulsed with soft blue light, illuminating the smooth marble-like floor. A fountain of strange glowing water trickled in one corner, and a raised platform covered in silk-like material served as a bed. But the most surprising thing, he wasn't alone. Across the chamber, a young alien woman sat, her legs crossed, arms wrapped around her knees. Her deep violet skin shimmered under the light, and her long midnight blue hair cascaded down her back. Unlike the warriors, she looked smaller, softer, more delicate. Her golden eyes widened as she saw him. For a moment, there was silence. Then, without warning, she sprang to her feet and ran straight at him. Ryan tensed, expecting an attack, but instead, she grabbed his arm, eyes filled with shock and excitement. "By the stars," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's true. You're a male." Ryan stared at her, stunned. "But yeah." She blinked, as if trying to process this information. Then, she let out a sudden gasp and yanked his torn combat suit, inspecting his chest. "What are you?" "Hey." Ryan stumbled back, trying to pry her off. The girl tilted her head, utterly fascinated. "You have muscles," she murmured. "And scars. And hair. I've never seen." Ryan grabbed her wrists, stopping her. "Okay, personal space. Ever heard of it?" The girl blushed, an odd deep purple hue spreading across her cheeks. She quickly stepped back, clearing her throat. "My apologies," she said, bowing slightly. "I have never met a male before." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temple. "Yeah, I'm starting to get that." She bit her lip. "Are all human men like you?" Ryan shrugged. "Depends. Some are taller, some are shorter, some are stronger. But yeah, most of us have muscles and scars." He smirked. "It comes with being the soldier." The girl's eyes sparkled with admiration. "I am Talivera," she said, placing a hand over her chest. "First daughter of the matriarch." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "The matriarch?" As in the woman who was deciding whether to execute him. "Well, Tali, nice to meet you," Ryan said, forcing a smile. "So, any chance you could tell your mom not to kill me?" Tali giggled. "Mother won't kill you." Ryan sighed in relief. "Not yet, anyway." His relief vanished instantly. "Not funny." Tali grinned but then hesitated. "You really don't know, do you?" Ryan frowned. "Know what?" Tali took a deep breath, her golden eyes serious. "Our males, they died out centuries ago." Ryan froze. "What?" Tali nodded. "A great war destroyed them all. The matriarchs of old did what they could to preserve our kind, but without males, we could not reproduce naturally. Over time, we became dependent on science and cloning to survive." Ryan tried to process that. "No males. None at all. That's why they look at you that way," Tali continued. "That's why Mother doesn't know what to do with you." Ryan exhaled. This was insane. "So what happens now?" Tali hesitated. "The elders will decide," she said softly. "Some will want to study you. Others will want to use you." Ryan's stomach turned. "Use me? For what?" Tali's face turned a deep shade of purple again. She quickly looked away. "Let's just say, you are very valuable." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. This was getting worse by the second. Then, a loud explosion shook the chamber. Ryan and Tali stumbled as the walls trembled. Outside, screams erupted. Ryan's combat instincts kicked in instantly. What the hell was that? Tali's eyes widened in fear. "It's them," she whispered. "Who?" Before she could answer, the chamber door burst open, and Velshera stormed in, blade drawn. She locked eyes with Ryan. "Human," she snapped. "You wanted a chance to prove yourself." Ryan clenched his fists. "Yeah." Velshera tossed him a weapon, a sleek alien rifle that hummed with blue energy. "Then fight," she commanded. Ryan caught the rifle, his body already moving on instinct. Because whatever was attacking the city, it was coming straight for them. The real enemy appears. The alien rifle in Ryan's hands hummed with a faint blue glow, its sleek design unlike any human weapon he had ever used. It was light but sturdy, perfectly balanced. His instincts kicked in. check the power source, assess the firing mechanism, locate the safety. Velshera didn't wait for him to figure it out. Move, human, she snapped, already stepping out of the chamber. Or die here. Ryan wasn't about to argue. Talivera hesitated, looking between Velshera and Ryan. Then she grabbed a small curved dagger from a nearby rack and followed them. As soon as they stepped outside the chamber, Ryan's breath caught. The city was under siege. Massive explosions ripped through the towering structures, sending debris and fire raining down. The once serene blue glow of the city was flickering, struggling against the destruction. The air was thick with smoke, and the distant screams of warriors and civilians filled Ryan's ears. But it was the attackers that made his blood run cold. The Drakfor. Ryan recognized them instantly. Tall, reptilian humanoids covered in thick, natural armor, their slitted yellow eyes glowing with malice. They carried brutal plasma rifles, their clawed hands wrapped tightly around the triggers as they gunned down anything in their path. Ryan watched in horror as one of the alien women tried to fight back, swinging a dual-bladed staff at a Drakfor warrior. The reptilian caught her mid-swing, grabbing her by the throat. She gasped, struggling, her feet kicking uselessly. Ryan didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired. A blue energy bolt exploded from the weapon, striking the Drakfor square in the chest. The creature roared in agony, dropping the woman and staggering backward. Ryan's hands tightened on the rifle. "All right. I like this gun." Velshera glanced at him, nodding approvingly. "Then don't waste it." Ryan didn't plan to. The three of them rushed into the chaos, cutting through narrow alleyways between the massive silver buildings. Ryan fired precise shots, dropping enemy warriors one by one. Velshera moved like a shadow, her dual blades slicing through reptilian flesh with deadly precision. Tali wasn't a warrior like Velshera, but she held her own, sticking to the shadows, striking when least expected. For a moment, Ryan actually thought they could win. Then the warship descended. A massive Drakfor battleship loomed above the city, its dark, jagged surface blocking out the sky. A low hum shook the ground, and suddenly, they opened fire. Beams of searing plasma rained down, ripping through the city's defenses like paper. The once great structures collapsed in flames, and warriors screamed in agony as they were burned alive. Velshera's eyes went wide. They are going to destroy everything. Ryan cursed. They had to get to higher ground, fast. He grabbed Tali's wrist. "We need to move. Now." Velshera took the lead, sprinting toward the central spire, the tallest remaining structure in the city. If they could reach the command center, they could figure out a plan. But the enemy wasn't done yet. A massive Drakfor warlord stepped forward, easily twice the size of the others, his armor scarred from countless battles. His eyes locked onto Ryan. A deep guttural growl rumbled from his throat. "Human." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. This thing knew what he was. Velshera's grip on her weapon tightened. "Run." Ryan didn't need to be told twice. The last stand at the spire. The trio raced up the winding stairs of the central spire, Velshera leading, Ryan covering their backs, and Tali struggling to keep up. The whole building trembled, barely holding together from the aerial bombardment. They reached the topmost chamber, a circular command room filled with holographic displays and alien symbols flashing red. Tali slammed her hands on the control panel. "We have to activate the city's last defense system." Velshera growled. "There is no system. Our power grid is failing." Ryan looked around, thinking fast. There had to be something they could use. Then he spotted it. A massive energy cannon, built into the side of the spire, its barrel pointing toward the sky. Ryan grinned. "That'll do." Velshera followed his gaze. "It's inactive. We don't have the power to." Ryan cut her off. "You have a power core, right?" Tali nodded. "Yes, but it's..." Ryan grabbed her by the shoulders. "How much energy do you need to fire it?" Tally swallowed hard. A lot. Ryan exhaled. Take whatever's left from my emergency beacon. Tally's eyes widened. But you'll lose all contact with your fleet. Ryan smirked. Not much of a fleet left to contact, sweetheart. Tally hesitated, then nodded. She rushed to the control panel, connecting Ryan's emergency beacon to the cannon's power core. The entire tower shook violently. The Drakfor warlord was coming. Ryan turned back to Velshera. Buy her time. Velshera smirked. I was about to say the same to you. The door to the command center burst open. The Drakfor warlord stormed in, plasma axe in hand. Ryan fired first, the alien rifle's energy bolts slamming into the warlord's armor. The creature barely flinched. Then it charged. Ryan rolled aside, barely dodging the massive axe swing that shattered the floor where he stood. Velshera leaped onto the warlord's back, her blade slicing at his neck joints. The beast roared in fury, grabbing her by the waist and slamming her into a wall. Ryan sprinted forward. The warlord swung the axe again. Ryan ducked, slid under the attack, and drove his rifle into the warlord's exposed gut. Point-blank shot. The warlord screamed as the blast tore through his insides, blue-green blood spraying across the room. But he wasn't dead yet. He grabbed Ryan by the throat. Ryan gasped, feeling his vision darken as claws squeezed his windpipe. Then, a massive explosion rocked the city. The energy cannon had fired. A blinding blue beam of energy ripped through the enemy warship, splitting it in half. The sky turned white, and for a moment, the entire battlefield went silent. The Drakfor warriors below stared in shock as their flagship erupted in a fiery explosion, breaking apart in the sky. The warlord's grip on Ryan weakened. Ryan used his last bit of strength to slam his rifle against the warlord's skull. The massive reptilian staggered, then collapsed. Ryan coughed, rubbing his throat. Velshera, bruised and bloody, grinned. Not bad, human. Ryan smirked. Not bad yourself, warrior princess. Tally, still at the console, let out a breathless laugh. It worked. Outside, the remaining Drakfor warriors fled in terror. The battle was over. The city had survived. And Ryan, he had proven himself. The alliance forms. The smoldering wreckage of the Drakfor warship still burned in the sky, chunks of debris raining down like falling stars. The once beautiful jungle city had survived, but just barely. Ryan stood on the edge of the ruined spire, his hands gripping the remains of a shattered railing. Below, the battlefield was a graveyard of fallen warriors, both Drakfor and the violet-skinned alien women. He took a deep breath. The scent of burnt metal, blood, and ozone filled his lungs. They had won, but at what cost? Velshera limped beside him, blood staining her torn battle armor. Despite her injuries, she stood tall, the fire of victory still burning in her silver eyes. You did well, human, she said, voice rough. I did not think you would survive. Ryan let out a tired chuckle. Neither did I. Behind them, Talivera worked at the spire's console, desperately trying to restore power to what remained of the city. Ryan looked at the sky. The human fleet never came. His emergency beacon had been drained to fire the cannon, leaving him completely cut off from Earth. For now, he was stuck here. And that meant he needed to make sure these people trusted him. But trust was hard to earn, especially from the matriarch. The matriarch's judgment. The survivors of the battle gathered in the ruined council hall, their glowing eyes fixed on Ryan as if he were some ancient relic come to life. He stood at the center, arms crossed, as the matriarch herself watched him from her throne. Unlike the warriors, she was older, wiser, but no less powerful. Her violet skin was marked with bioluminescent tribal lines, glowing softly in the dim light. Her golden eyes studied him, unreadable. You saved our city, she said, her voice calm yet heavy. You have earned the respect of my people. Ryan stayed silent. The matriarch slowly rose, stepping toward him. Even with age, her presence was commanding. But you are still an unknown. A male. A species we do not understand. Ryan clenched his jaw. What exactly do you think I am? Some kind of monster. A murmur ran through the crowd. The matriarch's gaze didn't waver. Perhaps, or perhaps you are something more. Ryan narrowed his eyes. What was she getting at? She turned to the gathered warriors. What say you? Velshera stepped forward. This human, she said, her voice steady, fought beside us. Blood beside us. Killed for us. He is not an enemy. Ryan raised an eyebrow. That was probably the closest thing to a compliment he would get. Talivera stepped forward next. He is proof of something we lost. Asterisk asterisk, she glanced at Ryan, then back at the matriarch. A connection to the past, and maybe to our future. Asterisk asterisk. The matriarch studied Ryan again, this time with something softer in her expression. Then she spoke. The human will not be a prisoner. A collective gasp swept through the chamber. Ryan exhaled in relief, until the matriarch raised a hand. However, she continued, he will remain under the watch of the royal guard. Her eyes flicked to Velshera. You, my daughter, will ensure he does not disrupt our way of life. Ryan's eyes widened. Daughter. He turned to Velshera, who only gave him a small smirk. Well, she muttered, this should be fun. Ryan sighed. Great. He had just become the first human ambassador to a lost alien civilization. Whether he liked it or not. A growing connection. Days passed. Then a week. Ryan adjusted to life among the alien women. At first, the warriors watched his every move, treating him as both an anomaly and a curiosity. But slowly, things changed. The warriors started training with him, fascinated by his brutal, direct style of combat. Ryan, in turn, learned their fighting techniques, fast, agile, almost dance-like. The engineers, after much hesitation, allowed him to assist with city repairs. Ryan wasn't a scientist, but years of military experience taught him how to fix things under pressure. Tali spent time teaching him their language, while Ryan taught her human jokes, much to Velshera's annoyance. And then there was Velshera herself. At first, she was strict, distant, and professional. But as time passed, Ryan saw cracks in her armor. She would spar with him longer than necessary, pushing him harder than the others. She would challenge him at the shooting range, smirking when he barely kept up. And sometimes, just sometimes, he caught her watching him when she thought he wasn't looking. Ryan wasn't sure what to make of it, but he wasn't about to ask. A new threat rises. Just when Ryan thought he was finally safe, everything changed. It started with a single distress signal. Tali had been scanning the wreckage of the Drakfor warship when she intercepted something. A message. Ryan stood over her shoulder, watching the glowing alien text scroll across the screen. His gut clenched. What does it say? He asked. Tali's face was pale. It's a warning. Velshera stepped closer, arms crossed. A warning for who? Tali swallowed hard. The Drakfor weren't here by chance, she whispered. They were sent. Ryan's blood ran cold. Sent by who? Tali hesitated, then activated the final part of the message. A massive hologram flickered to life, displaying the image of a creature far worse than the Drakfor. A figure in blackened armor, its face hidden beneath a skull-like mask, its voice deep and guttural. The experiment has been confirmed. The human exists. Ryan froze. Experiment. What the hell was that supposed to mean? The message continued. We will take him. We will claim what is ours. And we will erase all who stand in our way. The hologram vanished. The chamber fell into complete silence. Velshera turned to Ryan. What did you do? Ryan clenched his fists. I have no idea. But deep down, he knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Humanity's secret weapon. The enemy behind the curtain. The holographic message still flickered in the dimly lit chamber. The alien text glowed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Ryan stared at the projection, his jaw clenched. The experiment has been confirmed. The human exists. That sentence kept repeating in his head like a cursed echo. Velshera stood beside him, arms crossed, her silver eyes burning with suspicion. What did they mean by experiment? Ryan shook his head. I have no idea. But the knot in his stomach told him otherwise. The Drakfor hadn't just attacked this city at random. Someone had sent them. Someone who knew about him. Someone who wanted him. Tali, still at the console, scrolled through the intercepted transmission. There's more. She tapped a control panel, and another fragmented message appeared. The Harbinger is awake. The experiment must not fall into enemy hands. Ryan exhaled. This just keeps getting worse. Velshera looked at him sharply. If you're bringing danger to my people, I need to know why. Ryan met her gaze. Trust me, I'd like to know too. Tali looked up. There's one more thing. She zoomed in on the transmission's origin point. The screen displayed a set of coordinates, far beyond the edges of any known space. Velshera narrowed her eyes. That's impossible. Ryan frowned. What? Tali whispered, her voice laced with dread. The signal. It's coming from inside the dead zone. Ryan's confusion deepened. What's the dead zone? Velshera glanced at Tali, then back at Ryan. It's a sector of space where no one returns from. Tali nodded. Every ship that has ever gone near it has vanished. No signals, no distress beacons, just gone. Ryan's gut tightened. Something was out there. Something powerful enough to erase entire fleets. And it wanted him. A desperate plan. Ryan paced in the command center, mind racing. If the enemy was tracking him, then staying here wasn't an option. But that left only one insane alternative. We go to the dead zone, he said. Velshera turned to him, eyes sharp. Are you insane? Ryan shrugged. Probably. But we need answers, and I'd rather not sit around waiting for these bastards to send another fleet. Tali hesitated. Ryan, we don't even have a functioning ship. Ryan grinned. We don't, but they do. Velshera's eyes widened in realization. You want to steal a Drakfor warship? Ryan crossed his arms. Damn right I do. For the first time, Velshera actually smirked. Tali sighed. This is a terrible idea. Ryan patted her shoulder. Welcome to human problem solving. The infiltration begins. Under the cover of night, Ryan, Velshera, and a team of elite warriors moved toward the crashed remains of the Drakfor fleet. The air was thick with smoke, and the jungle was eerily silent. The wrecked warships still hummed with residual power, their shattered hulls crackling with energy. Velshera crouched beside Ryan. Guards. 3. Patrolling the south entrance. Ryan nodded. Take them out quietly. Velshera signaled to her warriors. Within seconds, the alien women moved like shadows, their blades flashing in the moonlight. The guards never saw it coming. Ryan moved forward, rifle raised. We're in. The team slipped into the Drakfor command ship, the corridors dark and abandoned. Tali whispered through the comms. The ship's systems are still functional, but we'll need time to override the controls. Ryan gestured to Velshera. Cover her. I'll check for any surprises. Velshera gave him a sharp nod. Be careful, human. Ryan smirked. Aw, you do care. She rolled her eyes. Ryan moved deeper into the ship, his instincts on high alert. The air was cold, metallic, and unnervingly silent. Then, he felt it. A presence. Someone, or something, was watching him. He turned a corner and came face to face with a nightmare. The Harbinger rises. At the end of the corridor stood a massive containment pod, its surface covered in glowing red rooms. Inside, something shifted. Ryan's heart pounded. The thing inside was waking up. Then, the pod cracked open. A pair of burning crimson eyes snapped open. A figure stepped out, tall, humanoid, but twisted. Armor fused with flesh, blackened veins crawling across its skin. Its face was partially covered in a sleek metallic mask, revealing only a mouth curled into a wicked grin. And when it spoke, its voice was eerily familiar. "You are the one." Ryan's blood ran cold. "Who the hell are you?" The creature tilted its head, studying him like a predator studying prey. "I am Harbinger. The first. The perfected." Ryan aimed his rifle. "Yeah. Perfected at what?" Harbinger smirked. "At being you." Ryan barely had time to react before Harbinger moved, faster than anything he had ever seen. A shadow of death. Ryan dodged just in time, rolling as a razor-sharp blade sliced through the air where his neck had been. Harbinger lunged again, its speed unnatural. Ryan fired, but Harbinger caught the energy bolt with its bare hand. The plasma sizzled against its skin, and then disappeared. Ryan's stomach dropped. This thing wasn't just fast. It was absorbing energy. Harbinger grinned. Weak. Unrefined. Ryan barely ducked as a blade sliced through his armor, sparks flying. Then, suddenly, Velshera tackled Harbinger, her twin blades striking with deadly precision. The creature staggered back, laughing. "Ah, the warrior. I've read about you." Velshera didn't hesitate. She attacked again. Harbinger caught her wrist mid-strike, his grip crushing. "Fascinating," he whispered. Then, with a single motion, he threw her across the corridor. Velshera crashed into a metal wall, coughing blood. Ryan's rage ignited. He grabbed a nearby electrical panel, ripped out a high-voltage power core, and aimed it into Harbinger's chest. The room exploded in sparks. Harbinger screamed, convulsing as electricity surged through him. Ryan didn't wait. He grabbed Velshera, slinging her arm over his shoulder. "Tali, now," he shouted. Through the comms, Tali's voice crackled with urgency. "Engines online. Get to the bridge." Ryan ran. Behind him, Harbinger rose to his feet, his eyes glowing brighter. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. Ryan didn't look back. They reached the bridge, and Tali slammed the controls. The ship's engines roared to life, lifting them into the sky. Ryan collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Velshera groaned beside him. That thing. What was it? Ryan stared out the window, watching the jungle disappear beneath them. "I don't know," he said, "but it's coming." Tali swallowed hard. "Where do we go now?" Ryan clenched his fists. "To the dead zone." Because whatever was waiting for them there, it was the only thing that could stop what was coming. A new beginning, or the end of everything. The journey into the dead zone. The stolen Drakfor warship cut through space like a phantom, its dark hull barely visible against the endless void. Inside, Ryan Carter stood at the command console, watching the holographic star map as the ship moved closer to the dead zone. A place where ships vanished. A place where something, or someone, was waiting for them. Velshera, still bruised from her battle with Harbinger, leaned against the console, arms crossed. "I don't like this." Ryan smirked. "That makes two of us." Tali Vera, sitting at the navigation terminal, looked pale and nervous. "No one has ever returned from this place." Ryan tightened his grip on the console. "Then we'll be the first." The ship's warning systems suddenly blared red. AL alert. Gravitational anomaly detected. Tali's eyes widened. "Something is pulling us in." Ryan turned to the viewing screen and saw it. The dead zone wasn't just empty space. It was a black chasm, swirling with ghostly remnants of destroyed ships, torn apart by forces unknown. Beyond that, something massive loomed in the darkness. A structure. A station the size of a small moon, hidden in the shadows. Glowing crimson lights flickered along its metallic surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. Velshera whispered, "What is that?" Ryan had seen a lot of things in his military career. He had fought on dying planets, seen civilizations rise and fall. But this was something far older than anything he had ever encountered. Tali's voice trembled. "That station, it's alive." Ryan didn't doubt it. And it was waiting for them. A lost human secret. The ship shuddered violently as unseen forces pulled it toward the station's docking bay. Ryan gritted his teeth, braced for impact. The ship lurched, then stopped. A deep thud echoed through the hull as docking clamps secured them in place. Silence. Ryan exhaled. "Well, guess we're here." Velshera readied her blades, her expression cold. "If this is a trap." Ryan smirked. "Then we make sure we're the ones who walk out alive." Tali swallowed hard. "I hate this plan." Ryan patted her shoulder. "You'll get used to it." The three of them moved to the airlock. The doors hissed open, revealing a long, dark corridor. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with strange organic metallic veins, pulsing faintly. They stepped inside. And then, a voice echoed through the station's speakers. "Welcome home, Captain Carter." Ryan froze. Velshera tensed. "It knows you." Ryan's pulse quickened. "That's impossible." The voice continued, smooth and mechanical. "It has been 784 years since last contact. Protocol awaits activation." Ryan exchanged a glance with Tali and Velshera. "This thing thinks I belong here." Tali whispered, "Ryan, I think this station is human." Ryan's blood turned to ice. A human station, abandoned for nearly 800 years. But why? And why did it think he was the one it was waiting for? The truth about Harbinger. They moved deeper into the station, the hallways shifting as if the structure itself was alive. Every few steps, holograms flickered to life, recordings of long-dead humans in uniforms. Then they reached the central control chamber. A massive AI core stood at the heart of the room, its surface covered in glowing data streams. The voice spoke again. "You are Project Harbinger, the final prototype." Ryan's heart stopped. Velshera grabbed his arm. "What does it mean?" Ryan barely whispered, "I don't know." The AI continued. "The Harbinger project was Earth's last attempt to create a perfect weapon, a soldier designed to survive anything, to rebuild humanity's place in the stars." Ryan's breathing became shallow. A perfect weapon. He had always wondered why he survived things no other soldier did, why his reflexes were sharper, his endurance stronger. And now he had an answer. Tali's voice shook. "Ryan, you're an experiment." Ryan clenched his fists. "No, I'm human." The AI flickered, displaying a file. A DNA sequence appeared, labeled Carter 03. Then, a second sequence appeared, labeled Harbinger 01. And they were identical. Velshera whispered, "That thing we fought. It's you." Ryan's vision blurred. He felt like the room was spinning. Everything made sense now. The enemy that had been hunting him, the Drak 4, the voice from the transmissions, they weren't looking for him. They were looking for the project, for the soldier Earth left behind. Ryan Carter wasn't just another human. He was the key to something much bigger. The final choice. The AI spoke again. "Do you wish to complete your directive?" Ryan looked up. "What directive?" The AI paused. "To awaken the others." The room shook violently, and suddenly, dozens of massive containment pods lit up around them. Velshera took a step back. "Ryan, what the hell is this?" The AI answered, "The Harbinger project was never just one soldier." Ryan's pulse pounded. The pods began to unseal. A new voice, cold, distant, familiar, spoke from the darkness. "It's time, brother." Ryan's breath caught. One of the pods opened fully, and standing inside was another him, a perfect, identical copy of Ryan Carter. But his eyes weren't human. They glowed crimson, and he was smiling. The war begins. Ryan raised his weapon, but the clone didn't move. It studied him, tilting its head. "You were the failure," the clone said. "The defective one, the one who escaped." Ryan's hands tightened on his rifle. "I'm the one that survived." The clone smirked. "Not for long." Then, the pods exploded open. More harbingers stepped out, each one with inhumanly perfect features, faster, stronger, deadlier. Velshera drew her blades. "Ryan, we need to leave. Now." Ryan's heart pounded. This wasn't a battle they could win. They had come looking for answers, and found something worse than any war. Ryan grabbed Tully's wrist. "Get back to the ship." The clone laughed. "You can't run from this." Ryan fired, but the clone vanished in a blur of speed. Velshera blocked an attack just in time, clashing blades with another harbinger. Ryan tackled his clone, slamming him into the control panel. "I'm not like you." The clone's grin widened. "You will be." Alarms blared. The station was collapsing. Ryan saw his only chance. He grabbed a plasma grenade from his belt and shoved it into the AI core. The explosion ripped through the chamber, blinding light consuming everything. Ryan ran, Velshera dragging Tali as they sprinted for the airlock. The clone's voice echoed behind him. "We will find you, brother." Ryan turned just in time to see the station breaking apart, the remaining harbingers vanishing into the shadows. They had escaped. For now. A new war, a new purpose. The stolen warship soared into space, escaping the dead zone. Ryan sat in the cockpit, staring at the distant wreckage. Velshera sat beside him. "What now?" Ryan exhaled. "The war isn't over." He looked at his reflection in the glass. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was the last hope against the perfect army. And next time, he was bringing the fight to them.